Hey everyone, today we are going to do shoulders in this video as well as going over plank. So you are going to want either a strap or something like a strap. So here I have a dish towel which you can just fold in half lengthwise and then make it nice and skinny so that it's easy to grab this way. At the very end of the video, I'm gonna have another technique that you can use that would require a longer strap, like being able to grab it like so with both arms extended, but that's just gonna be optional. You'll totally be able to get away with using a dish towel or a belt or a yoga strap if you have it, anything like it. Just wanna be able to grab shoulder width apart. That's the only requirement for the small strap. So without further ado, first, I want you to stand up and I want you to raise your arms up over your head. Imagine you're grabbing something from a shelf, right? So most of you will probably be able to raise your arms up overhead. Now, I want you to sit back down and I want you to ask yourself if you were able to raise your hands up overhead with two straight arms using just your shoulders. If you think yes, then we're going to double check that right now. So what we're going to do is we are going to lay down on the floor and we want our legs extended because if our legs are up, then we're gonna have a completely flat back on the floor and that's not what we want. We want our legs extended and then you might feel, a little gap here for part of your lumbar, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're going to raise our arms up over our head while laying on the floor, while keeping in mind certain parts of our back. So first things first, I want you to really engage your core. So engage your belly button, like there's a string attached to your belly button that someone's pulling behind you. Okay, so engage your core. The second is, I want you to have from your lower rib all the way up to your shoulders on the floor. And what this is going to look like is when you're pushing your back, so to speak, on the floor, you might realize other parts of your body moving. So we're going to bring attention to that. What can happen is, I'll use me as an example. Right now, my ribs are wanting to stick out so that my shoulders can be on the floor. Now to work on this, I'm going to knit my ribs into my core, and you can see my low back, not my low back, but my low ribs is now going closer to the floor. So once again, this was before, right? Ribs are sticking out. That's an indicator that you're actually arching your back as our ribs are sticking out. So we're going to knit our ribs in. You can even like push just to like feel like you're, sometimes it's easier to have hands-on contact for a sensation. Yep, good. And then you can see how when we engage our core, we knit our ribs in, then we're able to get closer to the floor than before, okay? Now for me, what can also happen for you, is when I am bringing my low ribs down, my shoulders want to pop off the floor. See that? Okay, it's because sometimes multiple parts of our body will move even if we're asking one body part in particular to do the job. All right, your body's really good at accommodating you with any actions, regardless if it's the right muscle, the right joint, it will make it happen regardless. Over time, obviously that causes injury. So theoretically what we're doing right now is we're in a standing position, but we're just on the floor and we're taking gravity out of the equation, okay? We're using it in our favor instead. So we're going to knit our ribs in, okay? The next is going to be have your shoulders down and back. So you see how I still have a little bit of a curve in my lumbar spine, like my low back is not touching the floor, which we don't want. We don't want to flatten the low spine here. And my shoulders are down on the floor. Now, what I want you to feel, stay on the floor, and what I want you to feel is, I'm going to show you my shoulder blades here. So if I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together like I have a bar of soap, right, between my shoulder blades, then I'm active. My shoulders are down and they're back and they're activated. Okay, so imagine as you're on the floor now that you are squeezing a bar of soap behind your shoulder blades, or in between, sorry. You're gonna grab your strap and you are going to have your strap shoulder width apart. Okay, and you're gonna have your hands rest with 2 straight arms. Okay, 2 straight arms down past your hips here. So once again, I've moved back and forth, so now I have to readjust. So going through the checklist, I'm going to engage my core, and I'm going to bring my ribs in and my low ribs onto the floor. Okay, I'm gonna relax my shoulders down and back. Okay, so you can see there's that, my shoulders are down and back. And with 2 straight arms, I am going to raise my arms very slowly up towards the top of my head without anything peeling off of the floor. So I'm gonna go remember to breathe. 2 straight arms, engage your shoulders. I start to feel my low back. I'm gonna stop right about here because I really feel if I go any further, then I'm going to, well, I'll show you, no matter how hard I try, see how I have space? I have internal resistance that I'm pushing against. So that's my body compensating, right? Right there. So if you felt any part of your body peel off of the floor, and you're doing the exact same thing when you're standing up and when you raise your hands up overhead. Exact same thing. This is going to tell you what you're doing. Where are you contorting your body to achieve an action? Okay? So what we're going to do is this several times. So we're going to go over it, and this is where your shoulders will burn, your abs will burn, everything is it's gonna be an intense workout, but you have to move slowly and you have to think of all the moving pieces. And it's gonna be new because when do we think about our ribs when we're moving, right? Probably never. Unless it's obvious and we're like really arching our back when we're reaching for something, right? But even then, are you thinking of your ribs? Probably not. So we're bringing awareness to this sensation so that when we move in our day-to-day lives, we're like, oh, hey, I'm actually, bending here, or I'm not engaging here. And that's how we start to implement these little nuances from our practice into our everyday lives. So once again, setting everything up. We want 2 straight legs, okay? You want to engage your core, knit your ribs in. Imagine there's a string on your belly button and someone's pulling down towards the floor, okay? So ribs, low ribs towards the floor. Engage your shoulders down and back. I like to engage my shoulders first and then knit everything in. Up to you though. Then you grab your strap, shoulder width apart. Make sure that you're not grabbing too wide apart because that's going to make it a lot easier. It's another way that we naturally compensate for not having the mobility in our shoulders or the strength. So you want to have shoulder width apart. Also be aware of your wrists. Sometimes we kind of get crazy wrists. We're like, we're just like, we think it's going to make it easier, right? But we want nice neutral wrists. Another thing that can happen is our wrists can want to go in, like so. I don't know if you can see that. Sometimes our wrists, we want nice neutral wrists. Okay, straight, relaxed. Going through that checklist, belly button, ribs, shoulders, and then 2 straight arms. When you're ready, slowly begin to peel. Your hands off your legs. Remembering to breathe. Keep your shoulders on the floor, including towards the tops of them. And once again, I'm going to stop here because I feel a little bit of movement right on my bra strap area. And then you're going to slowly lower all the way back down. All the way back down. Nice and slow. 2 straight arms. Very good. We're just going to keep on doing this. So once again, you have, and you can do this as many times as you want, whenever you want. We're going to do about 2 more times. So again, grab your strap, shoulder width apart. Get your breath in order. Breathe in and out through your nose if you can. And also release any tension between your eyebrows. Release your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Let it float right behind your front teeth towards the tip of your roof of your mouth. Because once again, we don't want to give the pain signals or the, oh God, I wish this was over signals to our brain or to our body. Because then you're just going to resist it even more, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So mentally, right, you got this. Physically, relax your face, okay? Grab your strap, engage your core, knit your ribs, feel your lower ribs come onto the floor, shoulders down and back, and then when you're ready, raise your arms slowly so you feel everything. You're making those brain connections to your low back. What does it feel like on the floor? What does it feel like when it starts to move? Can you be aware of those subtleties? Whenever you feel any sort of change, then you bring your hands back down. Nice and slow, nice and controlled. Relax your face. Breathe in and out through your nose. There you go. And then release. Relax. Very good. I'm going to do this again, one last time. So once again, release any tension in your forehead. Release your tongue. Stop your tongue from jamming up through the roof of your mouth. Grab your strap. You have your core nice and engaged. You have your ribs knitting into your core so that your low ribs can go towards the floor. Relaxing your shoulders, because we still don't want to go up into our ears, right? We want our shoulders down and back, like we're pinching a bar of soap. When you're ready, slowly peel your hands. 2 straight arms. All the way up. As far as you can, while maintaining all of that integrity in your alignment. And then release your hands. Slowly back to your hips there. Oh, there you go. All right, so this is a shoulder exercise that you can do and you can check in with your alignment. You can also do this same exercise on the wall in a sitting position. But what you have to do is you have to make sure that your knees are in line with your hip or that your knees are below your hip. So for instance, if I'm sitting here and there's a wall behind me, my low back is a little bit flattened. So it's not going to give good feedback, okay? Aside from being alignmentally incorrect. So what we want is we want to elevate our hips. So I wish I had a wall facing this way to you. Then I'm going to sit on a block. Okay, and I'm going to do my glute check. So my knees can now fall because of my hips are elevated. The floor is raised. Okay, and I'm going to do my glute check to make sure that I'm towards the front of my sit bones. Then once again, you can't see it, but there's a gap between my back and the wall. So I want you to also feel where this gap is. Now this block does feel a little bit high. So what I'm going to do is sit directly on the floor with 2 straight legs out in front of me. This might not be comfortable for some, but you can try best as able. Good. You know what? That flattens my back too much. So see, this is where you're playing around with sensations. So I am going to use my block. Nonetheless, there we go. Moving the block away from the wall is what was the trick. Okay, so now I'm going to be leaning up against the wall or sitting up against the wall. I'm going to go through my same checklist. So I'm going to engage my core, my ribs. I'm going to knit them down and in. And then I'm going to imagine that I'm squeezing a bar of soap between my shoulder blades. And I'm going to try and get as much contact as I can from my lower rib all the way up to my shoulders on the wall. So from here all the way up to the wall, I'm trying to have contact. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Super hard here, but that's okay. That's the point. And then I'm going to have 2 straight arms, shoulder width apart, same as on the floor. And then we're going to raise our arms up overhead. Again, check your wrists. Remember to breathe in and out through your nose. And I am going to stop right about there. And I'm going to go all the way down because I started to feel some movement happening in my back. So I'm going to go all the way down. Ooh, and that is 1. You might feel it in your hips if you're using a block. So it's really wherever your personal internal resistance is sitting, that's what you're feeling, is those sensations. So for me, it's in my right hip, trying to keep my knees lower than my hips, because I really want to arch forward this way. And so I'm keeping myself stacked, which is just showcasing my own personal internal resistance. You're going to feel these little spots in these stuck points in your own body. And just take note of it, because if you do this often, then you're going to notice a progression in terms of like, oh, I raise my arms up a little bit higher. Oh, I don't feel this tension here or in your back or wherever it may be. And that just happens with time and consistency, like with anything, right? So once again, we're going to do this again. We're going to have our initial part of our low back, right? The bottom part of it against the wall. And then we have that little bit of space between the wall and your lumbar spine, that natural curve. So like once again, no flat backs against the wall. Because if we were standing up and we had a flat back, then that means that our pelvis would be tucked under. So I want you to imagine that you're still like in the same alignment as if you were standing with your shoulders stacked above your hips and so on, okay? Still applies here. So we have the low part of our back, like where it starts, from our hips up on the wall. Then we have a curve for our lumbar spine. And then we have our low rib all the way up to our shoulders. Once you feel contact on the wall in all those places, or as best as able, then you grab your strap shoulder width apart. And then you, with 2 straight arms, slowly begin to raise your hands towards your ceiling, stopping at any point when anything starts to peel off your back, or if your shoulder starts to come forward. That's another indication that it's like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. But really, there's so much movement. Do you see that behind the wall, where my shoulder's on the wall and where my shoulder is not off the wall? Sorry, where my shoulder is off the wall, right? It's another indication that our body's compensating for us, trying to help us out. And then when you feel that peeling off anywhere, then you lower your hands back down. And that's another round. Woo! I don't know if you heard that, but my hip just popped. So to relax in between. This is not an exercise that you just go boom, boom, boom like we're doing reps, because it's such slow movements. You're really isolating certain muscle groups. And yeah, this is not the case where we're going for a rep count here. So yeah, I feel like you get the idea from the floor. You can do it on the floor, on the wall, and you can also do it even standing against the wall. A little bit more challenging, but it is doable. So the next thing we are going to go over in terms of shoulders is going to be plank. And to warm up for plank, we are going to learn baby cobra. And baby cobra is going to be done belly down on the floor. Oh, okay. So belly down. Hopefully you can see my legs. So my legs, I want to be together. If I was on the floor, my legs are together, my quads, my calves, and my feet are together, and I'm pointing my toes, okay? So it's happening out of frame, but that is how your legs are. Think of it as your cobra tail. So you squeeze your legs together, you press the top parts of your foot, so the shoelace side of your foot, down into the floor, okay? So you're really pressing your toenails into the floor. Then you're going to bring your hand to your low rib, okay? You squeeze your elbows in, and then on your next inhale, inhale your head and your collarbones up off the floor. But notice that your neck is still in the same alignment as your spine, because your neck is an extension of your spine. Continue to squeeze your legs together. And all your work right now should be in your legs and then your low back. This is a low back strengthening exercise. But that same concept, and you can lower down, that same concept of squeezing your shoulder blades together, like there's a bar of soap, still applies here. Okay, so once again, you squeeze your legs together, your thighs and your calves, point your toes, and press your shoelaces into the floor. On your inhale is when you bring yourself up. You can even float your hands here, even just for a second, to see if in fact you are using your low back, or if you're just pressing all your weight into your hands for support. And then lower back down. Good. So you can also do that several times. I really just wanted you to feel the sensation of your low back being engaged before we go into plank. So that's the main takeaway from baby cobra for today, okay? So then going into plank, I'm gonna use modified plank with bended knees, because if you are able to do plank like so, with your legs up, then you can take everything I'm saying and just apply that to yourself and amplify it that way. So typically for a regular plank, what I've seen is a push-up position, right? So we're going down and then up. What we are doing today is not a push-up type plank. We are doing a yoga plank. So it's going to be a little bit different in the fact that our hands are going to be shoulder width apart. I'm going to show you both directions, from the side and from the front. So hands are shoulder width apart, and then your hands are going to be slightly behind your shoulders, right? So they're just, my wrists are slightly behind my shoulders. And how it's going to happen is when we lower down, we're squeezing our elbows into our ribs, and we're lowering down, chest first, right? And then belly. All right. So once again, this is different than a push-up style plank. From the front, shoulder width apart, so we're not going wide, we're going shoulders. Okay, your wrists are slightly behind your shoulders, and then you lower down. So see how my elbows are scraping next to my side all the way down, like that. So they're not out here, right? So a lot of times in like a plank or a push-up, you're using the bigger muscles. In yoga, we're using the smaller stabilizing muscles, which is why yoga is really great in addition to whatever type of exercise that you do, because you're working on the smaller stabilizing muscles for the ones that you're going to use in that, like, ass-kicking kickboxing or something like that, right? So once again, you are going to have your wrists slightly behind your shoulders. And imagine that you have someone like touching like right here. I want you to pinch the crap out of their fingers. All right, so you're going to lower down, pinch, 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 chest first, and then belly, and then your hips. Going into baby cobra, take your hands back to your low rib. Again, pinch, pinch, pinch. And then inhale to rise, squeezing your legs together, pressing your toenails into the floor. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Feel your low back. You can even float your hands. Good. You can still breathe. You got this. In and out through your nose. Hands down and chest down. Good. You can bring your hands slightly, see my wrists are still behind my shoulders, so that when I push up, I'm in the same position. Okay? And that's a yoga plank. Now this is something that you can do to warm up. It is something that you can even do to cool down. A random, right, depending on repetition and how slow you're going. It can be very relaxing if you do it with your breath, right? Can be relaxing that way. The last thing that I'm going to show you is if you have a longer rope where you can have your hands extended out without having to bend your arms, okay? So I'm gonna raise you up. Boom, 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 like so. And then you're going to have your strap here, and this is another shoulder mobility exercise. So once again, we are now standing, right? So imagine that we're still on the floor. It's the same thing. This is called mountain pose. We're standing here. So we have our shoulders stacked above our hips above our knees. Our ribs aren't protruding out. We don't have a duck butt, situation happening. So our spine is in its natural curves, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this strap, and we're gonna start with our arms extended. You can have your feet hip width apart or slightly wider apart, that's totally fine. I want you to feel nice and stable. And you're gonna have your wrists, once again, they're going to be straight and neutral. We're not gonna be like, I don't know, what is that, riding a motorcycle, like vroom vroom? We're not doing that. So what we're gonna do is we're going to raise our arms up overhead, and with two straight arms, which I need to widen my grip, we're going to bring our hands all the way back behind us. Now this is really important, I'll show you from the side, is that when we're doing this movement, we are wanting all of the movement to come from our shoulders. Our shoulders are naturally supposed to be, for most of us, able to rotate around and back, right? So what we're wanting to do is we're wanting that same rotation without the rest of our body moving, okay? So we're taking our strap. We have two straight arms, and we are going to lift our hands up over our head. Now, if you feel like you're wanting to bend your arm, or you feel any, like if your butt like starting to stick out, your chest starting to stick out, your head starting to stick out, then that is news that you need to widen your grip. It's not a bad thing, it's just this is where you're starting, okay? So once again, we have our hands going up overhead, and then we're going back. Everything stays the same. It's a really good stretch across your chest. And then reverse, hands up overhead, and then back to neutral in front of you. And that's one round. It's just going from the front to the back, and then from the back to the front. And this you can do throughout the day, because honestly it feels delicious. Feels really good, and you can do it before a workout, after a workout, but once again what you're doing is you're strengthening your shoulders and protecting their mobility, especially for the long term. So I hope you enjoy these little yoga tricks, and you can weave them in and out of and choose however you want to use them, whenever you want to use them. All right? Have a good one. Bye.